The morning light slipped through the lace curtains, casting a golden glow over the dining table. I was stirring my tea when I heard whispers from the living room, hushed, careful, and cruelly familiar. My daughter-in-law, Clara, was on the phone. Her tone was soft, but her words cut deep. Once the new will is filed, everything will be in our name. She won't even remember what she signed. My hands froze mid-air, the spoon clinking against porcelain. A chill ran down my spine. A new will. I hadn't signed anything recently. My breath trembled as I leaned closer to the doorframe, heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. She laughed quietly. "Don't worry, he'll never suspect. She trusts me completely, that she was me." The world around me seemed to fade. The ticking clock, the faint sound of the kettle, the smell of morning toast, everything blurred into one sharp realization. The woman I had treated like my own daughter had betrayed me. I remember the first day I met Clara, polite, sweet, eyes filled with fake admiration. She hugged me so tightly when my son introduced her, whispering, "You're just like the mother I always wanted." I believed her. I let her into my home, my heart, my family, and now she was taking everything I'd built. I quietly stepped back into the hallway, holding the edge of the wall for balance. My knees felt weak. My late husband's photograph hung beside the stairs. His gentle smile watching over me, as if asking, "What's wrong, Mary?" "I'm sorry, George," I whispered, voice trembling. "Our home, our legacy, they're stealing it." That night, I couldn't sleep. The house that once felt like warmth now felt like a trap. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like betrayal. Every shadow carried Clara's voice. My son, David, slept soundly beside her, trusting, blind, and lost in her charm. The next morning, I made pancakes like always. Family breakfast, our little ritual. Clara smiled across the table, her voice sugar-coated. "Mom, you've been so tired lately. Why don't you let me handle your paperwork for a while?" Paperwork. There it was again. I forced a smile. "That's sweet, dear, but I still remember how to hold a pen." She laughed lightly, brushing it off, but her eyes flickered. Just for a second. That flicker told me everything. After breakfast, I excused myself and went to my room. My heart was steady now, cold but steady. I opened the drawer and pulled out a small black device. My late husband had installed it years ago, a tiny voice recorder he used when taking notes for his real estate clients. "You never know when truth might need proof," he used to say. He was right. That afternoon, I placed the recorder carefully behind the flower vase near the living room couch. My hands trembled as I pressed the red button. I didn't know what I'd hear, but deep down, I already knew. Hours later, I sat alone in the dark, listening. My heart broke with every word. "She won't notice a thing," Clara's voice echoed through the small speaker. I already replaced the document in her folder. "All I need now is her signature." David sighed. "Clara, are you sure about this?" "Of course I'm sure," she said coldly. "She doesn't even read half the things she signs. Besides, it's for us, for our future, our future." My hands clenched into fists. So my own son was part of it, silent, complicit, betraying his mother for money. I turned off the recorder and stared at the darkness ahead of me. My heart didn't just ache. It shattered into 1,000 quiet pieces. But even through the tears, one thought burned inside me. They think I'm weak. Have you ever trusted someone so much that you didn't see the knife in their hand? I whispered softly to no one, to everyone. If you've ever been betrayed by your own family, tap that heart. Let me know I'm not alone. The next morning, I greeted them with my calmest smile. Clara handed me a stack of papers. "Just a few forms for the insurance renewal, Mum," she said sweetly. I looked her in the eye and took the pen. "Of course, dear. I trust you," I signed, slowly, gently, but not before flipping the small switch in my pocket. The recorder was on again. Her smile widened. "Thank you, Mum. You're such a blessing." But inside, I was already documenting every word, every lie, every sound, because I knew the real blessing was truth, and I had just begun to collect it. That night, as everyone slept, I replayed the recording again and caught something new. Clara's voice, whispering to someone on the phone, "Once it's done, she won't have a roof over her head. We'll move her to the care home." The plate I was holding slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I covered my mouth, trying not to scream. They weren't just stealing my money. They were planning to take my home and my freedom. I stood there, in the dim kitchen light, my reflection trembling in the window. My heart was broken, but my spirit wasn't. And as I stared at the dark garden outside, a thought came quietly, steady and strong. They have no idea what I'm capable of. If you've ever given your love and trust only to be betrayed, hit heart symbol so I know I'm not alone. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. Share this if you believe grandmas deserve love, not lies. She looked down at the broken plate on the floor, whispering to herself, "Tomorrow they'll find out what I've really been recording." The rain began early that morning, soft and steady, tapping against the window like it was trying to comfort me. I sat by the kitchen table, my old recorder resting quietly beside a cup of cold tea. The house felt heavier than usual. Too quiet, too empty. Even though I wasn't alone, Clara and David were in the next room, laughing softly about something on the television. Their laughter no longer sounded like home. It sounded like distance. As I watched the drops slide down the glass, my mind wandered back to a time when laughter meant something real. David was 10 years old the first time I held the keys to this house. My husband, George, had worked day and night so we could buy it. I still remember the day we moved in. The smell of new paint, the echo of our voices in empty rooms, and David running up the stairs shouting, "This one's my room, Mom." We didn't have much, but it was ours. Every brick had our fingerprints, every wall held a story. I smiled faintly at the memory, my fingers brushing over the old family photo on the table. We were younger then. George, strong and proud. Me, full of dreams. And David, innocent and wide-eyed. If someone had told me that same boy would one day help take everything away, I wouldn't have believed it. But life changes quietly, not in storms, but in whispers. It started small. When Clara entered our lives, she was all sweetness and grace. She brought me flowers, helped me bake, asked for my recipes like she truly cared. I remember the day she first called me Mom. It melted my heart. I thought, finally, a daughter I never had. We'd sit together every Sunday morning, making pancakes while David read the paper. She'd say, "Mum, you've done so much for this family. One day, we'll make sure you rest easy, rest easy." Those words echo now like a cruel prophecy. After George passed away, Clara became my shadow. She handled the bills, the appointments, the errands, things David never had patience for. I was grateful at first, but slowly, I began to notice the way she'd sigh when I asked for help, or roll her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Then came the subtle shifts, the way she'd answer my phone, intercept the mail, or lose letters from the bank. When I asked questions, she'd smile and say, "Oh, Mum, you just forgot." "Don't worry about it. Forgot. That word became her weapon. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my trust. One afternoon, my neighbor Evelyn came by. She's been my friend for over 30 years. Sharp as ever, the kind of woman who sees what others miss. She handed me a small grocery bag and whispered, "Mary, I saw Clara at the lawyer's office yesterday." I froze. "Are you sure?" Evelyn nodded, eyes full of worry. I didn't want to assume, but she was carrying a folder with your name on it. My hands shook as I took the bag from her. Inside, apples and a loaf of bread. Ordinary things. But Evelyn's words felt like thunder. I thanked her quietly, forcing a smile, but the moment she left, I sank into the chair and whispered, "So it's true." That night, I couldn't sleep again. I walked through the house barefoot, tracing the photographs on the wall. David's graduation, his wedding, George's favorite fishing picture. I stopped at one in particular. The three of us, smiling in front of this very house. I touched it gently, whispering, "We built this together, George. I won't let them destroy it." I knew then what I had to do. The next day, I started digging through drawers, old folders and dusty files. Years of documents, wills, bank papers, deeds. Everything seemed fine at first, but then I noticed something strange. A second folder, labeled Updated Will 2023. My heart dropped. It wasn't my handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were printed pages, legal-looking, stamped, signed, with my name. But I had never seen those pages before. And there it was, the final line that stole my breath. Upon the passing of Mary Wilson, the estate, property, and all assets are to be transferred to Mr. David Wilson and Mrs. Clara Wilson in full ownership. In full ownership. Not a cent to charity. Not a donation to the hospital George once supported. Nothing for the community center I loved. Nothing that reflected my real wishes. They had taken my signature, my trust, my name, and turned it into theft. I sat there, numb, staring at my fake signature. Then slowly, I reached for my recorder again. I played back the previous night's clip, Clara's soft laughter and David's voice agreeing to finalize it soon. It was all there. Proof. I closed my eyes, feeling both heartbreak and relief. "George," I whispered into the darkness, "I didn't fail you after all." But even as I said it, tears streamed down my face, because the betrayal wasn't just legal, it was personal. David wasn't just my son, he was my only child. The next few days felt like walking through fog. Clara acted sweet as ever, bringing me tea, calling me Mum, even humming as she dusted the shelves. David left early for work, kissed my forehead and said, "Don't stress, Mum. We'll take care of everything." Those words, once comforting, now sounded like a threat. Sometimes I'd catch Clara looking at me, studying me, as if she was waiting for me to forget something important. Each time, I'd smile softly and play along. She thought she was winning. She had no idea that I'd already heard her entire plan. A few evenings later, Evelyn visited again. We sat by the fire, the recorder hidden in my lap. I told her everything. The fake will, the recordings, the lies. Her eyes filled with shock. "Mary, this is serious. You need to talk to someone, a lawyer, anyone you trust." I nodded slowly. "I will. But not yet. I want to hear them confess first." Evelyn leaned forward. "You're braver than I ever could be." I smiled faintly. "I'm not brave, Evelyn. I'm just tired of pretending not to see." That night, something inside me changed. I wasn't just a betrayed mother anymore. I was a woman reclaiming her story, still. As I watched the shadows dance on the walls, I felt a deeper ache, because no matter how strong I became, I couldn't stop loving the very people who broke me. If you've ever given everything to your family and still felt invisible, I whispered, looking straight into the dark, tap that heart, so I know I'm not the only one. My heart felt heavier with every breath, but I knew the truth was my only weapon now. A few days later, the house phone rang. It was the lawyer's office. The voice on the other end said, "Mrs. Wilson, I just wanted to confirm tomorrow's appointment for your updated will signing." My hand gripped the receiver. "Yes," I said calmly. "I'll be there." As I hung up the phone, my reflection in the mirror looked back at me. Tired, fragile, but determined. Tomorrow would change everything. Because they thought they were tricking me into signing their lies. But it was my turn to record them. Sometimes the ones we love most are the ones who break us. Comment true if you've ever felt that pain. No mother deserves to be forgotten. Share this if you believe love is stronger than greed. That night, as she placed her recorder inside her purse, she whispered, "Tomorrow, Clara, you'll finally hear what betrayal sounds like." The living room was heavy with silence. The clock ticked louder than usual, and everyone sat frozen. My son, his wife, the lawyer, and me. My trembling fingers held a small recorder, the same one they never noticed. For a long moment, no one dared to speak. Then I whispered, "Do you know what betrayal sounds like?" I pressed play. The room filled with the sound of her voice. Calm, cunning, confident. "Don't worry, once she's gone, no one will know. The new will already has my name." My son's face turned pale. My daughter-in-law's eyes widened as her own voice echoed back at her. She stammered, That's not me. Someone edited it." The lawyer leaned forward, his tone steady. "Mrs. Miller, this is your voice. It's clear and time-stamped. You gave these instructions 2 weeks after your mother-in-law's surgery." I looked at her quietly. "When you stood beside my hospital bed, holding my hand, you told me I was like your own mother." My voice broke a little. "Was that a lie too?" My son buried his face in his hands. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't." I turned to him, heart heavy but steady. "You didn't want to know. That's the difference. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? Tap symbol if that pain feels familiar." The lawyer unfolded the real will, my true signature at the bottom. "This is the official document Mrs. Miller signed 3 years ago. It was replaced illegally. The court will see this." The sound of paper sliding across the table felt like a verdict. The daughter-in-law's voice trembled. "I was just trying to protect the family." I smiled sadly. "By erasing me from it." The lawyer looked between us. "We'll need to submit this recording as evidence." "It changes everything." Silence again. My heart raced, not with anger, but something deeper. Release. Decades of loyalty, service, and love had been sold for a signature. I turned to my son. "You can rebuild a house, child, but once you lose your mother's trust, that foundation never stands again." He looked up, tears streaming. "Please, Mom, let me fix this." "Fixing comes after truth," I said softly. "You both hid behind kindness while taking what wasn't yours. When family turns against you, the silence hurts more than the words. Comment true if you've lived this." The lawyer stood gathering the papers. "We'll meet in court tomorrow." The recording changes the case entirely. My daughter-in-law sank into her chair, her mascara smudging as she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I rose slowly, gripping the edge of the table for balance. "That's the thing about greed," I said quietly. "It never knows when to stop." until it ruins everything. As I turned to leave, my son's voice cracked. "Mum, I'm sorry." I paused at the door. "So am I." The air felt heavier behind me, but for the first time in months, my steps were steady. Justice hadn't come yet, but the truth had finally spoken for itself. And as I reached for my coat, I caught the reflection of the recorder's small red light blinking. One final revelation waiting to be played, because what none of them knew was that I didn't just record her voice that night. I recorded his too. The courtroom was silent, so silent that even the ticking clock on the far wall sounded like thunder. I sat on the wooden bench, my wrinkled hands folded in my lap, the tiny recorder resting in my purse like a weapon carved from truth. My son and his wife sat a few feet away, whispering to each other, their faces pale and restless. For years I'd been silent. For years they'd thought I was weak. But today, my silence had a voice. The judge looked at me, his tone calm but firm. "Mrs. Jenkins, do you have something to present before the court?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor," I said, my voice trembling, but not from fear. "I have proof." The courtroom lights flickered slightly as my lawyer, Mr. Dalton, stepped forward and connected a small device to the speaker. My daughter-in-law shifted in her seat, her smile tight, her eyes flicking toward my son as if begging him to do something. But it was too late. The truth was already breathing through those speakers. Her voice filled the room. "Once the new will is signed, the house will be ours." "She's too old to understand legal papers anyway." A few people gasped. My heart thudded, slow but steady. Then came my son's voice. "Just make sure she doesn't find out until it's done." A ripple of whispers spread through the courtroom. My son's head dropped. My daughter-in-law froze completely. Her lips parted but no sound coming out. For years, I had carried the weight of their betrayal like a stone in my chest. Now, watching them tremble, I felt no pride, only sorrow. I looked at them quietly. "You both could have asked," I whispered. "Everything I ever had was meant for you anyway." My lawyer continued. "Your Honor, we also have the original will, notarized and unaltered. The defendant attempted to submit a falsified version, which this recording confirms." The judge adjusted his glasses, his expression heavy. This court takes such manipulation of an elderly person's estate very seriously. I heard someone in the back whisper, "How could they do that to their own mother?" Another voice said softly, "Some people only realize too late what real wealth is." My daughter-in-law began to cry, real tears this time, not the practiced ones I'd seen before. "I'm sorry," she muttered, barely audible. "I didn't mean to." But her voice trailed off under the weight of her own guilt. My son tried to defend her, but his words tangled in shame. "Mom, I didn't know it would go this far." I turned to him. "You knew enough to stay quiet." The judge's gavel struck, echoing like the sound of closure. This court restores Mrs. Jenkins' rightful ownership of her estate. The falsified documents are void. There it was. Justice. Clean, simple, and cold. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the ashes of something I once called family. People around me whispered in awe, pity, disbelief. Some looked at me like a hero, others like a broken woman. I felt both. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from release. As we stepped outside the courtroom, the world seemed quieter. The afternoon light hit the marble floor, and my reflection looked back at me, a woman who had lost too much, but gained herself again. A reporter tried to ask questions, but I walked past silently. I didn't need the world to know my pain. I only needed to breathe again. When I reached the steps, My neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, who had sat in the back during the hearing, placed a gentle hand on my arm. "You did the right thing, dear. Truth always finds its way out." I smiled faintly. "Yes," I said, "but sometimes it comes with a cost." Later that night, I sat by the window in my quiet house, the same house they had tried to take from me, the same house where I had raised him, fed him, held him when he was afraid of thunder, the same house where I was now completely alone. I picked up an old photo of my son as a little boy, grinning, missing a front tooth, covered in birthday cake. "You were my whole world," I whispered. "When did love stop being enough?" For every mother who's been betrayed by her own blood, share this. Let the world know our silence has limits, and if seeing truth win gives you hope, tap symbol so more people see this, because sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. My son and his wife left town soon after the judgment. They couldn't bear the looks, the whispers, the shame. I didn't follow them. I didn't stop them. Some lessons must be learned in silence. I poured myself a cup of tea, hands steady this time, and looked out the window as the night deepened. The moonlight glinted off the recorder still lying on my table. The same recorder that had once saved me and destroyed everything else. Was it worth it? Justice had been done, my dignity restored, my home safe again. But the silence in that house, it hurt in ways no betrayal ever had. Was victory worth the price of losing my son? That question lingered long after the lights went out. It's been 3 years since that day in court. The seasons have changed many times since then, and so have I. The house that once echoed with arguments and betrayal now hums softly with peace. Every morning, I open the same creaky window, let the sun in, and water the roses that bloom by my porch. They're brighter this year. Maybe because I finally let go of the bitterness that used to live inside me. People think healing happens overnight. It doesn't. It comes in small moments. The first morning you don't wake up angry. The first afternoon you make tea and smile at your reflection instead of crying. For a long time, I avoided the old recorder, the one that changed everything. I kept it in a drawer under a stack of letters and photographs, but one day I found the courage to play it again. This time, I didn't hear betrayal. I heard strength, my own voice, trembling, yes, but unbroken. That day, I realized something important. Truth can destroy relationships, but it also saves souls. My neighbors still stop by sometimes. Mrs. Callahan brings me lemon pie, and we sit by the window watching the mail truck go by. "You seem lighter these days," she said once. I smiled. I had to be. Carrying pain too long makes you forget how to live. Sometimes I think about my son and his wife. I don't hate them anymore. I pray for them, quietly, before bed. Hate would only chain me to the past, and I've spent too many years there already. Forgiveness isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about deciding you deserve peace more than revenge. A few months ago, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, just familiar handwriting. My son wrote, "Mom, I'm sorry. We lost everything, but maybe that's what we needed to understand what really matters. If you'll ever have me, I'd like to see you again." I read that letter 3 times before setting it down. I didn't reply right away. I needed time. Not to decide if I forgave him, but to remember how to trust again. Last Sunday, I finally saw him. He came alone, standing at my door with the same eyes he had as a child, only now they carried years of guilt. I didn't say anything. I just opened the door wider and let him in. We sat at the table where I used to feed him pancakes before school. The silence said more than any words could. Then he reached for my hand. I was wrong, Mum. I thought money could buy comfort, but all it did was steal peace. I squeezed his hand gently. Peace can't be bought, son. It has to be earned. With truth, he nodded, tears slipping down his cheek. For the first time in years, I didn't see a betrayer sitting across from me. I saw a boy who finally learned the lesson life had tried so hard to teach him. That night, after he left, I sat outside under the old oak tree. The wind carried the faint scent of jasmine, and for a moment, I felt young again. Memories flooded back, birthdays, laughter, tiny footsteps running through this same yard. Painful, yes, but beautiful too. Because love, even when it breaks you, still shapes who you become. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, tap symbol so I know I'm not alone. Comment strong if you've ever had to stand alone and rebuild. Now my days are simple. I bake cookies for the neighbors' kids. I read by the fire. I talk to my husband's picture when the house gets too quiet. Life didn't end when they betrayed me. It began again, softer and wiser. Sometimes, peace doesn't look like a new beginning. It looks like sitting in the same place that once broke you and realizing you're no longer afraid of it. Every evening, I light a candle near the window. It's not for mourning anymore. It's for hope. Hope that love, even if buried under years of mistakes, can find its way home. My son visits now every few weeks. We don't talk about the past much. We just sit, drink tea, and let the silence heal what words never could. I often tell him, true inheritance isn't in papers or property. It's in love, dignity, and the values we leave behind. He listens quietly, and I can tell, this time, he understands. Grandmas deserve respect and love. Share this so everyone remembers that. And if this story touched your heart, like and comment to honor your own journey. As the sun sets behind my old oak tree, I close my eyes and breathe deeply. Forgiveness didn't make me weak. It made me free. Sometimes, even after betrayal, love still finds a way.